Welcome back.
Let's do this.
Welcome back
I'm ready.
to the Overclock workshop. Fucking hell. Maybe I shouldn't start with profanity. I apologise.
Yeah, first 15 seconds, Harry. Come on.
Shut up, dude. Anyway, so the series continues, and we are rounding off the engineered primaries now. Finally, with the smart rifle. This funny little weapon that I hated when it first came out, and have come around to as, and I see it pretty much.
Slowly but surely, right?
Well, I'm sort of in a position where now I do see the engineered primaries as roughly equal, to be honest, even the stubby. All I will say though is I do think the executioner is probably the best overclock across all of the engineered primaries. Executioner's awesome. But I get to talk about an even better unstable overclock in this one because you know what it is.
Wow.
Do you remember?
That's bigging us up.
Do you remember?
I have. It's just coming to my head.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to talk about it until we
All
have
right.
to. So
let's not waste the time. Of course, we present our overclock ideas and then attack each other's.
yeah.
It's like a verbal brawl, basically. Although it's usually actually fairly courteous. Right, let's get right to it. My clean overclock, Skull Masher.
Ooh,
Right, and
nice and clean.
as you can see, it's a custom symbol. You won't find this symbol anywhere else in the game. It's a hammer, swinging towards a little skull. I suppose I should just read what it says for the actual positive of what it does. It's clean, so the positive is just what it does. It's the whole thing. Weak point hits release a small kinetic blast of 15 damage, 1.5 meters. So actually, I want to read the description because I like my descriptions. I think they're quite funny. A chemical reaction of unknown origin. It's like I'm just passing it off. You know, it's just like such a throwaway explanation. A chemical reaction of unknown origin causes the bullets to produce a small shockwave when they come into contact with digestive fluids and motherboards, or so I've heard. And the motherboards part is just like, digestive fluids, like on the actual alien weak points, it's either like their arse or their mouth. Either way, I think it's going to their stomach. So it has something to do with digestive fluids. And then the motherboard's at the robot weak points, I don't know. But I think this works, because there's a very specific caveat. In brackets it says, that's actually a typo though. What it's meant to say is that the effect can only occur once on an enemy, like per burst. So it's not every shot that, like, when you lock onto them, it's not every shot that you fire at them that hits their weak point is going to cause an explosion. Like in a full lock, it's only going to be able to produce one blast per creature at most that you hit. So that's why I think it can be a clean. It's just a very small amount of area damage that you can get if you hit weak point, and it's in a way to me a slight reverse of Executioner, only slightly. And then you're still aiming for weak points, but in this case, it's actually to help with AoE. And it doesn't rely on full locks either, so you can combine it well with like the electric one, where you only need 3 locks. Or even better, it'll be more effective to use if you just got 1 lock per enemy and shot that. So, I like this a lot. I will leave it to you to possibly provide any criticisms. I don't think there's any major changes that I think I should make for it to be well balanced.
I think
it's definitely on the stronger side of cleans, but
I suppose it's on the stronger side of cleans. But I don't know. I think if that was in the game, I'd never see myself using it.
I could see myself using it. I think I understand what you're saying. Do you think
it's such a minimal thing that you'll probably barely even notice? Like it's like just a slight extra boost of tiny area damage, and only if you hit weak points, which you are probably going to hit them quite a lot because smart rifle will be doing that. But yeah,
it does surprise me, frankly, that Executioner doesn't actually go more towards weak points. It's actually sometimes quite difficult to hit because the lock is always actually focused on the center of mass. It's like something like a warden, their center of mass is like below the weak point, so it's always a pain in the arse to actually hit them. I don't know. But yeah, Skull Masher, I guess. But do you think it would be too strong if it actually did more damage, though? It does 15 damage, which is enough to kill Swarmers.
I think it might. I don't know. I think it's alright. I don't know. I think it's something that could be interesting if pushed higher than a bat like a clean, so where it could actually be more of an AoE thing.
That kind of already exists with the smart rifle.
Yeah,
the explosive chemical rounds. Where it's like every enemy with 3 locks on, it releases an explosion.
Right.
And it's just a slight, I guess, de-evolution of that. I don't know, weakening of that idea to a clean. I don't know. Maybe it was better in my head. A lot of these tend to be, but that's the point.
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. Like, oh my god, this is an amazing idea, and then you like put it down, and like, okay, this is all right, and then you say it out loud, and it's now in the worst form it's ever been ever.
I suppose this could, in my opinion, though, would only work as a clean or unstable, and not just because of explosive chemical rounds. Because I said it's sort of like a slight reversal of what Executioner is. But what if we took that to a more of an extreme, where hitting weak points is just much more devastating, but in terms of like the area of effect it would produce, it's actually very much so worth focusing on weak points to achieve this. And it could even introduce the penalty of you don't actually deal weak point damage, but partially because you don't need to. So I feel like maybe this is actually an idea that's somewhat hampered by trying to make it a clean. I don't know.
I mean, it's up there as far as like cleans go, like the adds to the gun, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't used Smart Rifle much. I don't really know what the other Overclocks do, but I can't see the amount of damage that would help add be worth it.
I think I was just being careful though, and I think you probably could push it up a decent bit and it still be reasonable as a clean. Because in my opinion, the best cleans are always the ones that sort of add a little bit to 2 parts of the weapon. There's quite a few of those, and they're always worth taking. They're always, like, in my opinion, pretty much always leaning into like A tier if you were doing it in if you were ranking them. Those kind of cleans always end up there. And then you sort of have like the benign function changing cleans. And this sort of sits somewhere in the middle for me, where it's a very clear positive, but it's a slightly a slightly odd change.
You don't lose anything. It is going to be nice to have, but it's whether or not you're going to use it over the other stuff is what I'm wondering.
I can see myself using it. I probably wouldn't use it over Executioner, but I'd probably rather use this than explosive chemical rounds. So I don't think I failed conceptually. I just think it could be better. But
we'll see.
What do you mean we'll see? What, because it's going to be added to the game? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We've already got the OG adding it in as we speak for Season 3. That's what people don't realise. These are actually all leaks for Season 3. Every single one of these are being added.
If and when they add more overclocks, do you think there's a good chance that we will actually have predicted a couple of them in a roundabout way?
Bear in mind how many overclocks we're going to be guessing and adding. I think we might get a couple.
Do you think we might get a couple like identical?
Maybe not identical, like with the exact numbers.
I would guarantee. I'm going to guarantee. I'm just going to say it. I think we're guaranteed to have at least one where it's exceptionally close, if not identical.
Yeah, and I think that one is my clean.
Oh, let's go to that then. Vegetarian Max.
But that was a very smooth transition, I thought.
It sounds like a magazine for vegetarians. Because
vegetarian. Is that what I changed it to Max?
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote it down as. I mean, I changed it quite a lot from this actually. Then, but yeah, Vegetarian Max. I don't actually know why I called him that, but it
doesn't make
funny.
much sense. No.
And it's just a bit more ammo.
Yeah.
Just plus 50 ammo. Because as far as I've heard and as far as I've felt, it just has a bit of an ammo problem. And I think just having a bit more ammo, I don't think anyone's gonna not use that. I mean, obviously they can pick other things if they want to, but like, if you don't want to use a direct, like the executioner and stuff like that, I think it just a small. It's not really that small actually. A medium ammo boost.
It's fairly significant, but given that that's all it adds, I think it's actually just fine. So we got plus 50 ammo. I like your description too. There's the bullets are skinny, so more fit in the mag. Not only because it's kind of dumb, but it doesn't make sense with the name, because the name of the Overclock is Vegetarian Mags, but you're saying the bullets are skinny. So
they're vegetarian.
It should be vegetarian bullets, shouldn't it? Vegetarian.
I made these ideas at 1 o'clock at night. All right.
I think I did the same.
Yeah, I think you might have as well. I don't want to hear it. Like, because with the shotgun, I was there, right? I mean, it was 11, but I was still there. 12 was about when I was doing the stubbies, and my mind was leaving. And come to the final overclock on this, I was half asleep. I would literally, when I snooze in, I was like dolphin mode. I was
dolphin
gone.
mode.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think bit of ammo. I don't think anyone will hate that.
Yeah, I can't actually.
If anything, be too strong.
I can't really throw any criticisms at this. I mean, it might be slightly too much because it's like it's
like 2 clips, right?
I can look right now because I'm in the game. So excuse the button presses.
Don't excuse them.
Okay.
Judge.
Oh, I accidentally changed it to it. Okay, so base magazine size is 36, so this is slightly more than 1. I would just change it to to 48 instead of 50, because it's just a number that makes more sense for the smart rifle.
Sure. We'll lose.
That's the only change that I would make. And because I'm going to turn my controller off now so you don't have to hear that shit. I want to level a specific appraisal at this before we move on. In that, I think it would just allow for more, because there is a certain amount of build diversity that the smart rifle would allow if it had more ammo. Because it only has an ammo problem when you try and use it all the time. And if you with this extra, you could take like the extra damage in the first slot very comfortably, and just use it to do more things that the base gun allows. But you feel sort of punished for trying other things because you don't really have the ammo for it. So I think this works very nicely, and just it's one of the best things that a lot of things do is just allowing more allowing more comfortable build diversity with the default weapon, which sort of. It's why I think Executioner though works so well. Is because it's
God.
I'm sorry, and then
just stop sucking Executioner off.
I will very soon. This is just one last thing before we move on, and it's only because the reason why Executioner works and why an overclock like this is kind of necessary is because Executioner forces you into a very ammo conservative playstyle that works for it, whereas not much else does, and this would sort of just alleviate that entire thing. And I don't know. I think it just works very well, and it's something that the gun. There is an argument to be made of whether or not the gun just needs more ammo base, but this would be good enough, in my opinion, because I don't think its ammo problem is that big, and I think if they had an overclock that gave more ammo, that would sort of make that problem go away just enough. Let's say that. Right. Okay. And like I said, I don't really have any criticisms of this one.
Well, it's clean at the end of the day. There's not much that's going to be able to be said about them.
Well, we've said a lot about them. My balanced overclock, premium shipping. So, I said before we started that our balanced ones are quite similar, and you'll see why, because this is focused around auto fire.
Right.
But I've just put all the information on the screen. So the first positive is bullets are fired as soon as a lock is acquired, and at increased velocity. So it's kind of like a homing machine gun. But when you think about it, you don't have much control really over where you're going to go unless you use the really small lens. It's actually slightly
Yeah.
unpredictable, which I think helps take the edge off. And the second positive, though, and this addresses something that we'll get to it with yours. I think you failed to sort of address this. The 5th tier mods all rely on the electric one. You need 3 locks.
A lot of them rely on it. I am aware this is my least favourite of all of the overclocks I've ever made. My one. So just get your one over and done with.
Okay,
talk
so
about yours.
What it says. Okay, so what it says here, 5th tier mod effects have a 20%, 15%, and 5% base chance respectively of occurring on every shot. So how that plays into things is the electric one requires 3 locks and it will electrocute. In this case, it's 20% chance with every shot. So I think that's a fairly comprehensive translation. And then the other 2 both rely on full locks. One of them is making your rounds do more damage. But the reason I chose to have that one 15% and not lower, so, is because when you have a full lock and you have that bonus damage, when you have the full lock, that's all of those bullets gaining the bonus damage. So it wouldn't make sense to me for it to be like a 5% chance, because that's way less bullets than you would actually have getting that damage bonus. So I think 15% works for that as well. And then the 5% one is for the fear one, where a full lock will cause fear. In this case, it's every 1 in 20 shots. So you're basically guaranteed a fear effect if you use most of the magazine. So I think that's fair as well. I think it's basically a way of rounding it out so that it's fair in terms of how those work. But then again, the negatives are a decreased magazine size of -12, so you have just enough. If you're using the fear upgrade, you've got just enough to do that. And there's also increased reload time. And to me, that's sort of, those work as balanced penalties, I think. This doesn't occur to me as one that should decrease your damage, because this is a DPS focused overclock, where it leans more into it being a submachine gun, as does yours. Also, once again, I like my description here. It says special delivery today. It's how I open it. It says special delivery today. Enhancing the tracking package and fitting small boosters to the rockets. It should say small boosters to the bullets. Enables them to be fired extremely quickly and accurately upon being given a target. It's like, unfortunately, they're heavier and take up more space and stuff like that. So I think this works as a slightly unpredictable but confident DPS boost for the smart rifle that doesn't fully take away your lock-on capabilities. But you have to be, you sort of get to be much less, you can be less patient, basically. So that's what I'll say about it. Over to you. If you have anything to say, doesn't matter. You don't have to.
I think it's 8. I like the whole beat is basically just an automatic with random targeting. So it's always going to hit, but it doesn't always hit what you want.
Yeah. I can imagine it being fun against swarmers and stuff like that. Yeah.
And you've addressed the issue of, not being able to actually use quite a few of the actual things. Like mods. Not mods. Yeah, mods.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
mods.
So that they would stop working. Which is good. I think kind of because of that, it's unrealistic in that, not many things has to kind of, have extra effects because of mods.
This, pardon me. This is slightly different though to the unstables I've been doing for them, which I think are more unrealistic but also more consistent to this hypothetical idea. In this case, it's sort of just, it's a type of compensation that isn't really required in any other place in the game.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the most unrealistic part of it, but to me it's necessary to make it work.
I think you could maybe have it so it isn't fully automatic, but it's burst. it only goes up to 3 shots, like 3 shots bang, 3 shots bang, 3 shots bang.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So then it's basically automatic. Like it automatically shoots the second you hit 3, but then it can also use the other effects, and which would also mean that it would then actually apply a fear very often, which if I be broken might be viable, might do something, but I think that is another solution to the automatic mod things that requires not having to change the statistics of the mods and how they work. Just having a 3-round burst.
Well, I think that idea probably works better for your one. So speaking of which, we can move on to that now because Tyler's balanced, dumbing down, which is an appropriate name.
Yeah. So I think this. I'm just gonna say this first. This is not at all ever going to be a thing because of how the way the smart rifle is fundamentally created. I corrected myself.
The smart rifle.
The reason why I then kind of did it, knowing this fact, is because I wish this is an option for the smart rifle.
It's something it's an idea that gets thrown around in the community fairly often. A dumbfire function for the smart rifle.
Yeah, because you can shoot the smart rifle like a normal thing. You know what I mean? You can shoot it normally, and it's not bad. It's a pretty high damage, pretty cool gun. So this idea is basically then just, what if it is just a slower firing assault rifle? Instead of like the GKs. It's just a nice steady assault rifle that does heavy damage on shots.
Yeah.
And it basically does that, boosts the damage a bunch, because you lose all. The only reason I boost the damage that much is because you lose so many features of the actual assault rifle. You lose all of the lock-on effects, the whole lock-on as a whole. Like, you lose so many of the mods just for this that I feel like it just needs to be overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah. So to be fair to you, because I was prepared to sort of drag this through the dirt, it seems like you made it in fairly specific consideration of. This is compensating for what would be lost by actually having to introduce any convoluted systems that don't already exist, basically, like mine used to.
This is acknowledging. Yep, you're going to lose all the tier 5 upgrades. Yep, most of the tier 2 till 3 or 4 are also going to be quite invalid. You'll probably just have to use a couple ammo, a couple damage, and they're the only mods you're going to have. But you get a bunch of damage out of it, and it should be pretty fun to use.
But
so
the problem with that is, I would say it remains sort of dubious as whether or not that's okay. Like, as whether it's an acceptable thing to do to it.
I don't think it is at all. But it's just off the wish that I wish that was a thing. That in the tree of mods, that there was always an option of using it without the smart rifle element. And so I added it as an overclock because I could, and no one can do anything about it.
Honestly, I think it would work. I think there's nothing wrong with it from a statistic perspective. But I think we could actually do something really cool with it if it was just an alt fire that you could change it to this. And part of, not necessarily the penalty, but part of the playstyle that it forces you into. Because there's no, when it comes to changing firing modes for any upgrades or overclocks that allow a weapon to do that, it's always either a weapon that doesn't use magazines or only has one in the magazine. I don't think there's no leeway there. So if that's related to how the systems in game work and how things would have to be, then you would press reload while the magazine's full to change firing mode, and you'd be stuck with the firing mode you chose for that whole magazine. And I think that's part of it. That would become part of the choice that would come out of using this overclock. And I think you wouldn't have to change any of the stats about it at all, but you would only benefit from this overclock if you choose to sacrifice the other parts, but you have the choice while using it at the same time. It doesn't remove the choice if you have the overclock equipped. So I think that, do you think that would work? I think that's perfectly fine.
I think that a mixture, because mine is implausible due to it just ignoring half the mods, and yours is mean, more reasonable, not implausible, but unlikely due to it having to change how the mods work.
Yeah.
I think we
But this
could
wouldn't have to change how mods work. That's the point.
Yeah, I think it has to play along while also resulting in a weapon that is used like the ones we hope, and I think people would be pretty chuffed. Like, yeah, I think there is something here. Obviously, not here individually, but here as a concept that everyone wants. In that a less smart rifle to be an option. I think that is definitely a desire that is possibly could be able to be met. Like if you just severely reduce the lock on to it being the place in front of the gun, you know what I mean? Then
A bit like the Vault from Titanfall 2. Is the Vault in Apex?
Sure, it is actually. Yeah,
It's slightly like that, isn't it?
not really.
No,
It's just an SMG.
no. The Vault is like magnetic. It's like magnetic. It slightly homes in on people. That's the idea.
I don't think it does that.
It's meant to.
It might.
If it doesn't,
but I don't think it
Apex
does.
is wrong. So anyway, with my idea for how you could change it, you would have to introduce another penalty, though. I think
Probably.
because the lock-on system isn't fully disabled. That would actually strike me more so as a unstable. But I can't be bothered to come up with that penalty. But what I would say is that we're both sort of not necessarily fans of, but we have an understanding of this idea that it's very okay for overclocks to push you in a certain direction for how you build your weapon. And
Yeah, that's
I
what
think
Overclock should do.
This would push me towards, if it took into account my change as well, where you could change between the two firing modes. It would push me towards. I would use the electric one, and the one that makes you do more damage against electrified or burning enemies. So then you would electrify something with the normal firing mode. It would reload, so it would be, you'd have to be fairly
You'd
on it.
flip the mag. So long you just.
You'd have to be fairly on it, because
in.
then you'd have to reload and then switch as well. But then you're doing a lot of damage to that electrified enemy. But even then, you can use the shard diffractor and the breach cutter and the grenade launcher to set things on fire as well. So it would all work very well, because that's the one upgrade that I think would actually benefit quite a lot from this overclock that you've come up with, if it stays how it is without my suggested change.
Yeah.
Electrochemical rounds doesn't require the lock-on system to be in place. It just makes you do more damage to electrified and burning enemies. So that would work wonderfully with it.
But yeah, I think this is more of the message than the actual result.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
It's not about the overclock and how balanced it is.
The overclock.
The overclock. But yeah, I think it's weird that we kind of basically came up with the same kind of secondary, or not secondary, fucking, balanced of just a automatic gun.
It's also just like, because I had seen yours before I did mine, but I didn't feel like I was copying. This seems to be something that happens weirdly often.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I mean,
I think it could just be a subconscious thing where we subconsciously take in each other's ideas. I think that probably does happen. But whatever. I don't think it's like a perfectly formed overclock, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Let's go with that.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be winning any awards, and it's probably my least favourite of all of them ever, I would imagine, because I'm fundamentally against things that clearly can't be a thing in the game.
Speaking of which,
and this is what Harry says.
Introducing
he refuses to
Grenade Guy.
add a balanced unstable.
Well, that's because they're unstable. So I can promise this kind of overclock will mostly go away after this episode.
Mostly.
It's going to come back a little bit for the crossbow. So I'll just get out of the way now.
So in like half a year.
Half a year? Nah. No, not half a year.
I mean,
this full series will take us about 24 weeks. Half a year is 26 weeks. So
we're doing the crossbow as the last video, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I want to do Scout before Driller. probably a conversation for off there.
Okay,
Right.
just pick my main last, sure.
And I've put all the info on screen because this is more. You're going to want to read this. The lock-on prioritizes the grenades. It should say your grenades because it's very specific to grenades and has different effects depending on which grenade you're using. And to sort of help explain that, the negatives, it says you can't lock on to enemies while manipulating grenades. That's the important one. Where it's just like, if one of your grenades is on the screen, the smart rifle is going to lock onto it, basically. Well, actually, no, if it is within the lens. So if you use the really small lens, it wouldn't be that easy to pick it up. So you probably want a wider lens. But it will just focus. It will just put one lock on the grenade, and it won't put any locks anywhere else. And you're now in control of the grenade. And just some extra compensations. Obviously, you're forced out of using the gun normally when you're manipulating grenades, and you've reduced reload speed and a small magazine. So +2 reload time. That's quite hefty. That bumps up to a 5-second reload. That's the Thunderhead, right?
Ooh.
But I think it works because of how crazy this is. So like I said, you lock onto your own grenades and you you control them in a way, and it has different effects depending on which one. So the lure, it increases the strength of the lure, and it takes because one of the problems with the lure is it has like a limited number of enemies that it can actually draw in, right? So it would allocate the stat of the smart rifle that is like how many targets you can paint. It would put that on the lure so it can attract that many enemies, or plus that many enemies. And I think that works specifically for the lure because, like I said, when you're locking onto the lure, it also increases its health because it gets destroyed quite easily. But I think it will get destroyed quite easily if you attract every bug under the sun towards it. It's not going to stay alive much longer. So there's sort of an element of choice there, I think. And then the plasma burster, the plasma bursters are weird, but this is even weirder. You now control its direction. You can move it around in the sky. Thinking about it now, I don't really know how this would work in terms of going backwards and forwards with the grenade, but I feel like it would. If this was ever added to the game, if and when, they would find a way to make it intuitive, I'm sure. So yeah, when you're locking onto a plasma burster, you control where it goes. And the bursts themselves, the explosions only happen when you actually make contact with an enemy. So, although that would become pretty uncontrollable if you moved the plasma burster into a group of enemies, it would just all go off at the same time, basically. So it's pretty odd. But I like that element of choice. And it would be better against both hordes and bigger targets because you could very easily just swing the plasma burster in between the bigger targets. And then proximity mines, what you do with this overclock is you can withhold the charges, like the explosions. You can stop it from detonating, basically. But if it's tried to explode, it will save that. So when you let go, it will release those explosions, and each one will do slightly more damage and affect a slightly bigger area. So there you go. That's Grenade Guy. So can I say, before you start ranting, I think just honestly, these would be good ideas if grenade overclocks were ever going to be a thing. Would you agree with that? Or better?
Yeah. I think they upgrade and interact with the grenades in a way that people would not argue with at all.
No.
Like lures having more things and lasting longer and stuff like that.
But in terms of it being something that's added to a weapon, I understand why this doesn't work. Right? You don't.
The ability of gods at the tips of a random ass weapon that no other guns can obtain and interact with just doesn't.
Yeah, you're lucky it's just subdued. It was short-lived, but there was an initial consideration of what if we could do something with every grenade.
interact with other classes' grenades.
That was a very short-lived idea. That never went on paper. That never went down into any kind of physical form. The idea came up and went away, but that idea did come up, and that scares me.
Your own little godforsaken hellhole that is your head.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like the ideas. Obviously, I mean,
I think the
they're pretty
individual
interesting.
ideas are good.
Yeah,
Objectively.
I think you did miss out something that when you have the lure, you should be able to like make him run around, and like it follows your your trail. Like, the lure runs away from the enemies. That'd be pretty funny. I'd pay to see that. But otherwise, yeah. Well, like you'd lock onto the lure, and then you'd like look left, and the lure would run left. He's like, whoop, whoop, whoop,
yeah,
whoop.
sure, why not? Why not? So you don't. So because I'm very aware of what this is. This is a crazy, very firmly hypothetical idea. I know this isn't going to happen, so I'm not expecting. I'm not expecting you to be able to give me like a way of making this work because I knew it wasn't going to work.
This is you realizing that you do actually kind of want grenade mods.
Kind of.
You want to be able to interact with your grenades in fun ways.
By the way, is a possible avenue for where we would go once this series is finished. That's a possibility. But
I think if they mention that in season 3 they're going to be getting grenade mods, I think definitely.
Well, we'll talk about it if it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But we could just do it where it's like. Actually, we'll talk about this afterwards. Not after. Well, maybe not afterwards. We could talk about it after we're done. We could keep it on recording.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, like I said, there's no way of saving it, but that's not because it doesn't need saving. Because I'm very self-aware of what it is. You know, I don't need to save it. It's never going to be a thing. I know that. So let's just. I've got the idea out. I've got the idea out there.
Really
Let's move on.
All right.
Because your unstable is also quite interesting.
Yeah, this is the one that I wrote peak unconsciousness, but I would say it is actually growing on me.
It's not a bad idea.
System error.
Yeah.
I also like that I got to use the dice icon because I like them. And you have the title and the description appear, right?
This is a bit odd. Breaking the fourth wall here. Basically, what I do is once you mention what it does, I immediately bring up the rest. It starts with just the logo and the name, but as soon as you start talking about what it does, then I bring up everything else. Do you want me to bring up the rest of the information?
Sure. Because even with the information, it's going to be a pretty hard though. Because I could not put it into written word properly.
Oh no, there's some pretty funny grammatical errors here that I decided to leave in.
Oh, that's very nice of you. The description took me a long time to write, which was quite annoying.
Well, you walked.
I did like the error 777 though, because that's like how to win in gambling, and it's random. Yeah. So you now, because of a system error, it's in the name, can only apply one lock per glyphid.
Per glyphid. Per aim.
Per glyphid, per round, charge, whatever you call it, burst, that kind of thing. You can only lock on one per. Because you apply a random status effect once you shoot the shot. I think you still do damage, I guess. So, you still hit them, but then you're not really going to do much damage. But then your damage you're going to do is going to come in form of any status effect.
Yeah.
I was thinking, just the normal ones, like some with pheromones, fire, ice, that kind of stuff. But I'm realizing I could, with the new kind of coil gun status effect fiasco, if they're leaving that kind of status effects in the game for you to mess around with,
it got patched out yesterday.
Damn it, all the hell!
But
Because I kind of wanted
but
there to be a chance that you could make an enemy elite.
But this is more of a self-aware one as well, you might say, but also more feasible than Grenade Guy. It's like, this is just such an anomaly. Like, that's how it'd be presented. It's just like literally anything could happen when you fire it.
Yeah.
So is it a different status effect for every enemy that you hit?
Well, it's a random status effect. You could get 3 fires in a row. You could get pheromone, radiation, stun, shit like that. You could get any combination.
Yeah, but I would go so far as to say I would want to add even more stuff. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking
maybe there's a chance to just break all of its armor.
Bug,
or
stuff like
so it's
that.
like the Wabberjack.
Yeah, I think it could be like, and this is, no, I think about it, vaguely what we kind of mentioned. If we were to make an actual new Overclock type, this would probably be my suggestion for it.
If it works that way, because you can make this slightly more subdued to contain it within.
Yeah, I think there is.
First of all, just stuff that's in game. Second of all, just stuff that.
Just gonna mention that you lose simultaneous lock, so you can't lock like a ton of records. You can only lock probably a couple. I mean, -7. That's like how many?
It's such a weird number. Why can't it be -8?
Yeah, no, -8. The point is,
you pick really weird numbers that don't mesh with the numbers. The smart rifle does the numbers. Pick better numbers. I've got a burp coming.
Point is, you lock on to like 5, 10.
Pardon me.
I don't remember how many you're left with. Probably varies in your upgrades. And yeah, they get probably I think a version that is possible to be added to the game is like a random status effect, like a normal one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's,
and there'd probably be like a bigger negative as well. Like there'd also probably be a damage decrease or an ammo decrease or something like that.
Ammo decrease. Ammo decrease.
Because you are actually going to be doing a lot more damage out of your bullets.
Damage increase to me is something that would make sense to this one. And that's not something that is really that present on the smart rifle. I think it's just explosive chemical rounds because you create explosions. So that's compensate. I think you could actually bring the damage down a fair bit, especially now that we have a weapon like the Shard Diffractor. It can very easily fill in that primary role. You could go nuts, really.
Yeah.
Right. So what are we doing?
I think we're wrapping up.
I think we do need to wrap up because it sounds like things are getting slightly less. Pretty soon, it's going to be slightly more difficult to record without disruption. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah. Same. Well, I think I think we just do this. Thank you for watching. I think this honestly
go to the
probably
end screen.
Not. Yeah, probably not our best one. I would say this is not my finest work. I would definitely argue.
I think we did pretty good with Stubby.
Yeah, no, I
I think
Stubbies.
I also think we've both done. I think we're both fairly happy with what we've done for the grenade launcher.
Yeah,
specifically. Which will be next
grenade
week.
Launch.
The PGL.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I've got to do all that. But yeah, I think we are done. Thank you.
You tell the master I'm done for the day. Oh, by the way, so I heard somewhere that basically rock means like and stone means subscribe. So, and I know you guys love rock and stoning. So, if you'd like to all rock and stone,
have you taken that from somewhere?
No, I no.
It's pretty good.
It's not, is it?
That's pretty good. Well, no, it is. Because
so remember,
what are they going to do? Not rock and stone.
Remember to rock and stone. If you don't rock and stone, you ain't coming home.